Hi, my name is Brian Boggs, and this is the Leading Mind series. Today in the studio with me is Steve Jensen. Steve is the Managing Director of the National Sales Academy here in Sydney, Australia. Now, Steve, I've known you for a number of years, and I know that you're just so passionate about sales. And as I understand it, Steve, you travel the world. You're an international sales trainer, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, yes. I jump on aeroplanes and sit in hotels and present to thousands of people.
How many years have you been doing that?
Goodness gracious, I've started about 15 to 18 years. It's a long time.
It is a long time. And as I understand it, you gained some of your earlier knowledge. You worked very, very closely with great names such as Anthony Robbins, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, and Rob Salisbury. That must have been a fantastic experience.
Oh, they were wonderful. I mean, they're the icons of the industry back in those days and still are. And I was actually passionate about finding the best of the best and seeing what they did. And when I first read Tom's book and then saw him in a fantastic seminar, I said, wow, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So it was a bit of a crusade. And eventually got invited to a boot camp and then worked with the great man, and it was just fantastic. And then again, same thing via Rob Salisbury, really, because he was the national or the international sales manager of the Phoenix Group. And he introduced me to these great people and got me involved with the likes of Tony and assisting at his seminars, and being able to talk to the great man on a regular basis was awesome.
I can see where you got the passion now. And what you've developed here at the National Sales Academy is something absolutely unique in Australia. I haven't seen anything quite as exciting as what you're doing there. No,
it was something that we actually started back in the early days when we started Impact Training Corporation. It was we had a consultancy firm, and still do. It's a big brother for the National Sales Academy. Now the academy has taken over. It's part of the business. One of the major, what could we say, frustrations was when we went to a business to help them with sales and sales management or communication. No one had any formal sales training. There was no way you could get it. You could read some great books, you go to 1, 2, 3 day seminars, but there was no place where you could actually learn how to become a professional communicator. So after the frustration of nearly a few decades, we decided to put the academy together. We went on websites, went all around the world, and in my travels I was looking for academies and couldn't find any anywhere. Nowhere that actually put a program together where you, from any business, you could actually go away with some type of qualification which said I can sell it. And to date, the academy is running for a couple of years now. We've had a 100% success rate.
That's fantastic. And as I understand it, it's a faculty where people can go to learn how to make sales and also how to get involved in sales management.
That's right, yes. One of the big voids in the industry, in business and sales, is the ability to work the numbers. It's probably the most boring parts people say, but when they understand it, it's one of the most exciting processes of sales, because if you can, what gets managed gets done. If you know the close rate, the show rate, the be-back rate and so forth, it's very simple to be able to monitor that on a day-to-day basis. A big mistake a lot of people make is manage it at the end of the month and can cry about their results. So some simple formulas: close rate divided by show rate gives the amount of appointments you need. All those sorts of things are things that we teach at the academy. And then we suggest we use the Hawthorne principle, where if you inspect the numbers on a daily, half-daily, weekly basis, without any increase in knowledge of sales, your sales will go up.
Yeah, only has to increase. But as I understand it, Steve, you've developed and perfected your unique style of something that you call DISC, which, as I understand, there is 9 separate processes. Could you explain to me how that works?
Okay, there's a combination of two things there. Many years ago, I got involved with DTS, Doug Mull Training Systems, who are the license holders of the process called DISC, created by Trans Training International, an American company. We became a distributor over here via this business, and it actually revolutionized our business back in the 80s. And that's a study on behavioral styles. And there's millions of different types of ways of doing it, and I've researched most of them. This is by far the best. It breaks behavior into different patterns. What you can do is only 4, then you combine the 4 with 2 or 3 others. And it's very simple to teach, and it's very easy to implement. And if you put it into your business, that's one thing. But we like to teach it to people so it puts it into their life. See, sales isn't really sales. Sales is the ability to communicate with people, create relationships, and have fun. And by understanding different behavior, it makes a huge difference to the ability to create rapport, which is, in essence, one of the major principles of creating sales. Now, combine that with a thing called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. There is a process where you can learn how to create rapport very, very quickly. See, people say create rapport. We say do rapport. If people can create rapport, and you have Joe, he's laughing at your jokes and he's just talking a lot, well, that's not rapport. Rapport is actually talking to someone and actually working within the model and actually enjoying the conversation and really finding out a little bit about the person and then telling them a little bit about you. Now, we have a process called the process of 9. Abbreviated, all it is, and if you just do this instantly before you do any part of your presentation, any part of your product or your service, you'd sit down for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes and find out 3 to 9 things about the individual, personally, not intimate, but just something about them, and share between 3 to 9 things about you. If you do this well, by the time you get to the 6th item that you've discussed, the person would have more than likely told you a dilemma, a problem, a challenge. Now, as you get into more conversation, they'll feel more comfortable with you, because if you have commonality in this conversation, which is the key ingredient, they will start to tell you a thing called the truth. Now, if you tell me the truth about your challenge, you can then work with the next principle, which is finding out their pain or their uncomfort. If they're uncomfortable about something and your product or service can give a solution to that product, and guess what? You have more possibility of making a sale. So if we combine the two things together, it's quite simple.
Yeah, but I guess most people just take that for granted, that if you're selling something, you need to immediately get in and promote the product first before, I guess one of the expressions that you use, before you've even been given permission. That's a mistake that you find that a lot of people perceive sales to be.
Over 90% of salespeople will present their product far too early. They'll say, hi, Brian, nice to talk to you. What sort of computer you want? Bang, you'll instantly go that you want a computer, then start to show you a lot of computers. Now, we have a thing that we call red brain and green brain. Red brain is about the logical content. This is about things, price, opening hours, your service, right? And people tend to dump that information on people much, much more quickly than finding out the compelling reason to purchase it. So if we actually go into this red brain conversation, the person will be thinking, wow, I don't love this person, don't like them, he's maybe a nice guy, but gee whiz, I wonder how much this is going to cost. Now, if your whole presentation is around about red brain or the logical process, then guess what? Unless you're the cheapest or you can discount your price, you're going to have a challenge when you go to close. So the easy way to do that is to turn the red brain off. The best way to do that is to go green brain. Green brain is the emotional brains. When we talk about happiness, uncomfortableness, excitement, despair, and get the person talking about that, it instantly turns off the red brain, which means that we can't think red and green at the same time. In other words, there's no purple brain. So in other words, if we can get you telling me how you feel, and then we have some logical backup with a good product or service that you have passionate about, then guess what? We have permission to present the product. So we have a little saying, never present your product until you have a compelling reason for them to want to buy it.
Okay. Steve, is it possible for someone who has experienced a number of years in a sales vocation or a service company, they may very well be a solicitor, an accountant, a financial advisor, a mortgage broker, is it possible for them to relearn these amazingly simple concepts?
And that's a really good question. In my younger days, I used to say there was a stereotype for sales professionals, gregarious people that are happy and so forth. But as I've been doing this for such a long time, I agree with the great people who say that salespeople are not born. They can learn to be a sales professional if And there is an if they have the desire to want to learn. See, the enemy of learning is knowing. And some people say, oh, I know that, I do that. But they don't sit down and dismantle their presentation to see if they can grow. And sometimes that can be a challenge. But you've mentioned some interesting careers. Financial planners. Well, what does a financial planner do? Well, they say they do financial planning. We help you with your investments and so forth. Well, we'd ask you to say something different. A financial planner, in my mind, would be someone that actually reduces the stress in my life, reduces my debt, which allows me to have the lifestyle I deserve, to work, to have fun with my family, to have the things that are necessary, to reduce the discomfort and start to be really excited and a bit more relaxed about the everyday living. I mean, that's a different conversation. And we've had financial planners, real estate agents, accountants, solicitors, come to the academy with this very logical way of thinking, because they're very logical, very clever, matter of fact, and they get locked into the product, and their knowledge is so immense. Challenge. People don't buy the product. They buy the feeling attached to the product or the solution that you're going to give them. When we teach them that, then it opens up a massive big door for them to actually sell more.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about over a cup of coffee the other day. We were talking about trust and how people build trust with each other. People in the financial planning business and the mortgage broking, even the accounting business for that matter, are in what we call the advice business. At the end of the day, they're selling good advice. But they have to know that the proposition is selling, and there is an aversion to the word, especially in the financial planning family. They don't like using the word selling. But of course, how else does one communicate a strategy?
They say selling's not a dirty word, but when you say, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm a salesperson, instantly people have this pushback. They say, hey, it's like when you're at a party. You say, what do you do? I'm a policeman. Everyone runs away. So we don't believe selling is this thing which is something to be avoided. Selling is the one thing in life which should be a primary thing that you learn. Just think about it. If you put selling as a primary thing to learn, well, guess what? You can sell yourself to the woman or man that you desire. You can go in and tell your kids to do things without then sell a concept to them. Don't just tell them and have Big Daddy going there. It's a life skill. It's not actually a process which is just about making money. It's communication. If we take it from a different sphere, say it's communication and relationship building, which has an end result, which in some cases is money. And that's what selling is in our life. And I must say that at the academy and with impact training with our consultancy firm, when people first come to the training, they go, oh my God, I'm going to learn how to sell. They leave, and all of them say it. Wow, we've learned so much more than what we thought we were going to learn. We thought we were going to learn how to sell, but we've learned how to communicate, and it's worked great at home, great at work, and fantastic with my relationships. And it's made a huge difference, not just in the small sphere of work, but I believe if we can encompass the whole thing called life, it makes a massive difference to people. And you can't just turn it on and off.
No, I couldn't agree more. I get so frustrated when I speak to a lot of these people out there, and sadly they do not even have the ability to control a conversation, and yet they are holding themselves out to be in a service industry. So it's encouraging to learn that they can learn these skills. Earlier on, we were talking about inside and outside the bubble. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about inside the bubble?
There's some great statistics bantered around, and I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes down to stats, so I actually have to prove them. So when I go out there and we do sales, and I'm still on the coalface, and I love presenting material to sell, because we still go out there and seed businesses and corporations to come to the academy and our consultancy firm. One of the easiest things to do in a presentation is when you're meeting with somebody, you need to test the buying temperature before you go into presenting your product or service. And in the old days, they used to call them test closes or trial closes or whatever you like to call them. Statistics have proven that if you have 11 or more, you can increase your closing percent by up to 20%. So 11 or more test closes, you can increase your closing percent by up to 20%. But there's a but. Traditionally, they've done test closes, which is like, can you see yourself coming here? Can you see yourself driving the car? Which is a challenge because that's outside the bubble. That's meaning that you're looking at the product thinking, can I see myself taking that product or service? We call that outside the bubble. When we have outside the bubble test close, that pre-frames the person that they still haven't purchased it, which can be dangerous. What we want to do is we need to have a conversation to Brian, to Bob, to say, hey, once you've got the car, look, we've got fantastic service here, and the first one is completely for free. Now, would you like us to deliver the car to your house, or would you like to pop in and get a loan car for the weekend, and then we can deliver it? We can deliver it back to you here at the car yard. And now they're thinking about their first service of the car, which means that they would have subconsciously already purchased the car. And this can be done with any product or service. This is called an inside the bubble test close. And some people call them involvement questions, where we ask questions to a prospective client or as though they are already a customer. And they then start talking to you as they own it, which means that they've already purchased it subconsciously. Now, if we then have the compelling reason to buy and your product and solution fits, then you should have a sale at the end of it.
Okay. And I can see now how that applies also in the service industry, where the first interview with the accountant, the financial advisor, the mortgage broker would be to position the service that that entity is going to provide to you. Then that also needs to be communicated in a friendly manner rather than here is a written menu of the services that we provide. I hope you look at the menu and like us.
We actually have a thing called the big picture presentation, which is a timeline. And let's say I'm talking with financial planning or accountancy. And really, when you talk about financial planning and accountancy, it's an ongoing relationship that you have with that person and firm. We break it up into 4 different sections. We call it the initial stage. This is where we get, the initial information, and we start to put the plan together. And you've got to be specific about your product or service. Then we have a next stage, it's called the visual stage. This is the exciting stage. It's when you start to see some changes in your finances or whatever it may be. And then that can have a period of time that you designate that they should start to see some sort of rough changes if things go well. Then there's a next stage where you take them along the timeline, and then you say, hey, this is the result stage, hopefully at this stage, and we never say definite, hopefully, probably, we'll see, that the next stage where you see the result, and you then talk about a solution to their challenge. And then we stop here and we say, Brian, once we get to the result stage and all these things are in place, I mean, how long are you wanting to keep this result for, whatever it may be in accountancy, financial planning, and everyone said, I want to keep it forever. You say, well, that's the reason we have the maintenance stage. And we then tailor the maintenance component. Now, we then say, Brian, now the first stage is a turnkey process. It happens automatically. We'll do that for you. But ultimately, where would you like my firm or me to take you? Is it the visual results or the maintenance stage? Where's Brian going to say? He's going to say the maintenance stage. That gives me permission to present a service to you which has ongoing service, which means I could say to you, hey, look, do you want us to call you every month or so just to check in to see how things, or would you prefer to meet me at your office, or would you like to come to my office? And you say, look, I'll come to your office. I'd like to bring the stuff. Come to my office is too inconvenient. Instantly, you're talking about the service component of coming to the office, getting the upgrades or whatever your product or service is, via financial planning or accountancy, which means that you're talking about ongoing processes. And in the timeline, they've told you where they want to be. So that gives you permission to actually have a service component, not just a once-off fee.
I've got an expression I use, Steve. It's called, are you the captain or are you the crew? Because you can't be both. And quite often, within the context of a service company, the person that owns the business, the principal of the business, may be technically very, very clever. He may be the best accountant about. He may be a very good financial advisor. He's a thought leader who can perceive solutions to financial problems. but he's not very good at the initial meeting. So then is it perhaps appropriate that he employs a captain to make that initial sale? It's critical, isn't it? Because the lifetime value of that client is predisposed for that very first meeting. And if you bring out a technician who is lacking in people skills, perhaps he's best kept in the back room, even if he owns the business. And the radical thing to do would be employ someone to be the meet and greet.
Oh, look.
Pretty radical idea, but...
Look, it's interesting you brought that up. For a very long time, some people have tried to be the master of everything. If you've got someone that's incredibly technically gifted and that can drive the boat in a certain specialty, it makes a lot of sense to employ people that love to meet people, that understand the product, then can present the product and service as a solution. So the people that have the gifted minds to do the technical components can do that. And then what you pay, or what the investment, we don't call it pay, it's actually an investment in the professional communicators, salespeople, whatever you like to call them. It will come back in 10, 50, 100-fold. And interesting that you mentioned the value of a client. I mean, just a client alone can give you a return with ongoing services, but the referral from somebody that has a relationship with that sales professional and has the technical wizards assisting in making a huge difference to their business, whatever it may be, or could be to them personally, is second to none. It is the best way to generate an enormous amount of income, and it doesn't cost you anything. You just create relationships, and you can make a phone call, you can create a referral process. And in our module 8, for instance, at the Academy, we have a whole day just on referrals. And, to be quite frank, I'd love to spend a week on it, but it's just an easy thing to do. But it's continually laced with the ability to communicate, get the trust, exactly what you said earlier. It's all about creating a friend, so to speak. So then when I work with Brian, the financial planner, then guess what? I want to help Brian too, but he's made a huge difference to my life. Hey, Bob, John, Mary, come and meet Brian. He's great. He's my friend, and he's done this. And that's another way of looking at employing a person to champion your sales, and they'll be passionate about it. Because if you're not passionate about selling or your product or actually presenting to people on an ongoing basis, the probability of massive amounts of success is low. You can learn it, no question. You can learn it. And if you have the desire to do it, then yeah, great. But some of the people that are technical wizards just don't have that desire.
Yeah, and in fact, just learning the passion, learning to have the passion. And I guess it's something as simple as just explaining to someone that you've seen a movie recently or read a book or heard a piece of music, and then how I can relate that to you. In fact, I went and saw the Rolling Stones movie on Saturday, Shine a Light, on IMAX. Keith Richards, 6-foot-tall face right on your screen. It was exciting. The music was great. And you can enthuse about that. And then that exact same person, you ask them to enthuse about their product or service, and they lose the passion. So it's encouraging to know that that is a skill that also can be learnt, the skill of getting the passion. Steve, I get the passion. I get the passion even with speaking with you. And it's great to have one-on-one. But I know that you're travelling all around the world. You're a busy man. You're up in Brisbane the other day. You're off to New Zealand tomorrow. Then you're telling me you're off to Germany. Is it possible we can go online and learn this material, Steve? Yes,
look, it's definitely doable online. It needs to have someone that will sit down, listen, watch if need be, and actually do the exercises when we actually do the thing called the rehearsal or role play. It's called role play, matter of fact. It's not called role serious, so you've got to have some fun. The best way of learning sales is to make sure that there's someone with you. Solo effort in role play is tough. I mean, even I find it tough. I do stuff in the mirror because I'm by myself a lot. But I need to make sure that if someone went online, the ultimate would be to have maybe pairs, 2 pairs, 4 pairs, whatever, online. And it's a lot of fun.
Steve, if there's one particular thing that you think that would make a huge difference what would that be?
Look, with everything we've spoken about thus far, it was getting permission. The permission thing is about getting the person qualified to be able to present your product or service. See, 80% of the sale is qualification. And we talked about pleasure and pain before, getting permission to find out all these things. Well, finding out the qualification process is the key to opening up many doors of sales. For instance, if someone wanted to buy a product or service and we just presented the product or service just because it was a product that he asked for and we didn't find the compelling reason to purchase, the probability of purchase at the end is low. You probably get the third largest objection in the world, I have to think about it, or maybe I got to shop around. Because we haven't had a compelling reason to buy, and I don't know the man, and I don't like or trust you. So if you work the qualification process well, and we use a process called the 4 W's, it's like what, where, why, when, and how. Now, we can't go through it in massive detail now, but it's really isolating what is their number one priority. A, B, C, D, or E. I'll give you the information. Or where are 2 or 3 areas that's affecting you or your business by not having that thing fixed? Or where are 2 or 3 areas that's affecting your business? Why is that? And here's a big one. And how long has that been going on for, Brian? And Brian's going to say, oh, forever. And I say, well, let's be more specific. Now, here's the key. In qualification, you have to use a thing called specificity. Specificity makes things real. So I need to find out from Brian, well, when do you want this fixed? He'll say as soon as possible. See, we live in a non-specific world and we get away with it. And I say, well, no, be more specific, Brian. When do you want to have this nailed? And Brian will say, oh, look, it's September. I said, well, why September? Well, bang, bang, bang. Instantly becomes real. Then I'll ask him the big kahuna. I'm going to say, hey, look, obviously this is important to you. Now, how are you going to feel if, say, 6, 12 months down the track you're still in the same position you are now? And I'd be much more specific, not position, whatever the product or service was. You'd say I'd be shattered, I'd be uncomfortable, I'd be disappointed. Then I'll say, well, look, don't worry. By using my product or service, whatever it may be, I'll then tailor the solution. We'll be well on the way of making sure we kick some goals and do A, B, and C. And then I'm going to turn on your green brain and say, are you excited about that? And you're going to say, absolutely, because now you see me as a solution. Yeah. Now, once that's done, I present my product in a manner which is not red, but green brain, which is emotional. Then I have to have a systemized closing sequence, which is for another day.
That's absolutely fantastic. The amount of times that I've engaged a service professional, be it from an accountant, a solicitor, a financial advisor, a mortgage broker, a general insurance broker, they may make some notes on a piece of paper, or they may even go through a pre-prepared fact find, which asks me things like, how many caravans do I have?
Okay.
What's my art collection? Meaningless stuff. The sorts of questions that you're suggesting that the good communicator should ask come from the heart, I guess. Comes from common sense. It comes from having what I call the quiet conversation.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. It's the questions you ask about the answers. Look, the fact-finding sheets are okay, but they have to be linguistically triggered. In other words, they have to create an emotion. I'm not averse of creating a fact-finding sheet, but it has to be not a table of caravans. It has to be about a whole lot of emotion and how they feel and how it's affecting them professionally and also personally. And that's called a reflective tool. We create them at the Academy too for people.
Steve, this is fantastic. What are some of the things that people could take away from our chat?
Well, let's put them in an order from the beginning. See, there are 8 steps in the selling process. The first thing I'd love if people just to listen to what we spoke about at the beginning, I'd love them to spend some time when they first meet people to find out a little bit about them and consciously find that out, at least 6, and then give 6 things about them before they get into the nuts and bolts of the conversation. So that's the process of 9. If they can concentrate on that, that would be great, first step. Second step is to then get the commonality happening. Find out something you have in common. At least 2 or 3 things before you get into the nitty-gritty of your product. Now, number 2 would be to then say, right, let's sit down and let's find out that compelling reason. Now, we talked about the 4 W's. They are, what is your number one priority, followed by your second and third priority that you want to fix or change. Number one, that's the first W. Second W. Now, where are 2 or 3 areas this is affecting you by not having this fixed professionally, maybe personally too? Listen. Talk about the answer. This is a conversation. Next thing is, why? Why is that happening now? It wasn't happening before. That's number 3. Here's a little extra add-on for the advanced people out there. How long has that been going on for, Brian? Brian says, ages. Then get specific. The 4th W. When do you want it fixed? When do you want that challenge fixed or possible challenge fixed? They'll say ASAP. Again, be more specific. And here's the big one. Now, we call it the hurt and rescue process. We say, and it's got to be in conversational. And please, for anyone listening, please, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. That's why we talked about rapport and all that stuff. This is the big one. How are you going to feel 6 to 12 months down the track, Brian? And obviously this is important to you. If everything is the same and nothing changes, whatever the product or service is, they will more than likely say, yuck, terrible, disappointed, angry, whatever. Then you'll say, don't worry. Look, don't worry. By doing product or service, my product or service, you'll be well on the way, kickers and goals. Now, this is it. Then I'll say, are you excited about it, Brian? That's called the 4 W's plus H. Now, this takes me a day and a lifetime to teach people. So if they can take that away, great. Then we talked briefly about a timeline. There's about 70% of products or services, buying cars, real estate, accountancy, financial planning, can be done diagrammatically. See, just quickly, you need to be able to access people's communication in a visual way, in an auditory way, and a kinesthetic, which is feelings. So if I can actually show you, draw a timeline and show you what's going to happen, the fear of the unknown goes. So if you can have a diagrammatical presentation, which just has 4 sections, just looks like a fishbone, and ask the person where they want to be. They say there, then give them what they want. We have a little saying called GTWTW. Give them what they want. And guess what? Then they buy. Now, to wrap it up, that would be the 4th thing. The last thing, and we haven't talked much about it today, and again, we want to give as much as we can away today for someone to make a difference. When you do your price presentation, I strongly recommend you tailor your price presentation. We do a thing called a T-graph. Now, if you've got a piece of paper and put it in front of you and just did like a T with a little tail at the top, you'd have a product or service in the top left-hand corner and a product or service on the right. So it's between the 2 lines. Right. You call your product a name, not a logical name. It has to be an emotional name. Now, it could be a way of doing something or a product or an amount of money. You put that on the left-hand side. You do an arrow going to the right-hand side. Now, 80% of people's future is to the right. So you'd write in what you would prefer them to buy on the right-hand side. Then you'd ask them to choose. Of the 2, which one are you leaning more towards? Is it A? Or is it the B, which is on the left, on the right? So most of the time, they will pick the one on the right if you've planned your presentation correctly. Now, this is not a trick. You've got to put the thing that's more appropriate for the person on the right. But if you write it down on a piece of paper and talk it through, you're accessing the visual and the auditory cortex, which means it becomes very understandable for the person and it makes it easy for them to purchase. Now, remember, 20% of the people, future is to the left. But who cares? If they take the left-hand side, you still have a sale. And then you have to have a sequence of asking for the money. And again, please don't ask people to pay for things. People don't want to pay. They like fixing up things, taking care of things, looking after things. They don't want to pay. Instantly red brain. I would suggest, hey, how do you want to take care of that? Savings or credit if it's a cash transaction. If it's not a cash transaction, so how do you want to, all we have to do is a little bit of paperwork. Let's get you away from your pain and into some pleasure. Are you excited, Brian?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do it. Sooner we get you there, the better. Instantly, you're not thinking about the money, you're thinking about the solution, and whoo, a lot of fun.
That's fantabulous. What you're talking about, Steve, is the art of advising.
Agreed.
Yeah, I love it. Where you show visual as well as the practical information. Very powerful.
Perfect.
Absolutely fantastic. And Steve Jensen, you're fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And I thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure. It's been delightful.
You've been listening to the Leading Minds series. For further programs and more information, visit the website leadingmindsacademy.com.